All right, this is about Turnitin today and how Turnitin and Canvas can work together to make life better. First thing you do is setting up an assignment. I'll quickly run through this because there are some other help tips in more detail about this. But essentially you want to create an assignment. Probably the best thing to do is to do it through a module. So go to the module you want to add it into. You can go to assignments and create it and then add it to a module, but that's kind of double work. And under the submission type, you can put whatever information you need to in there, but when it comes down to submission type, that's where you choose external tool. The external tool you will find is Turnitin. I probably should have put find there instead of search, but that's going to be Turnitin, and then you save it. So that it's as simple as that, using Turnitin, and then when the students submit to that assignment, they're going to use Turnitin. Now, if you're thinking of doing something crazy like adding a rubric, which you can do through Canvas, come and see me about it because it's an interesting and fun process, but there's a couple things you need to do. So if you want to skip this bit, that's okay. If you plan to add a marking rubric, you must add it without external tool added as the submission option. So I'll just go back and show you that. Create your assignment and you're thinking, ooh, I do want to add a rubric later, so it can't be external tool, it's got to be one of these other ones. Save it, add the rubric, go back, then choose external tool and the rubric will stay there. I know it sounds bitsy, but that's what I have found when I've tried to add one. So that's about rubrics very, very briefly, and if you need to know more about that, come and see me. So in general, once you've got Turnitin set up, and I've got one set up, I'm looking at my screen here, my second screen, I've set up this assignment with Turnitin. Okay, I've got my task sheet in there, which is a Google Doc, so if I update it in the Google Docs, it updates here. And these are all the students' submissions down the bottom here. When I initially set this up, I can go in and I can go to my settings and I can go to optional settings. So I'll go back to my PowerPoint and show you. The optional settings will do all the sort of fiddly things that you want to make sure that you set out. And now I will give you a link at the end of this to show you where you can get some more detailed instructions, written instructions about this, but for now I'll go on. I will mention this, don't mess with any of these dates. These dates should all be set in Canvas. When you set up the Canvas assignment, rather I'll go into the edit settings, make sure in Canvas you set up all of your dates. Okay, and I really should have done that. I might just edit that bit out. And so in the optional settings down here at the bottom, you'll see a bunch of things come up. Now you can tweak these now, or you can tweak them later, or you could actually even tweak them after they've submitted some things. So I'll show you what they are. Allow late submissions, that only turns up, I believe, before you've got any submissions that come in, so you can't change that afterward. So that's one of these ones you want to get right after having said what I just said. So you probably do want to allow late submissions, otherwise they just can't submit. So a student will hand you the paper on time, but you also insist that you want it through Turnitin. They can't do it unless you allow them. Well, the compare submitted papers against, you really want the following. I just took this as a screenshot. That should be ticked as well. The student and institution student paper repository, that's all our stuff. So that saves sisters a few years apart from submitting the same paper, or cousins, or whatever it is. That means once it's been submitted, it's in our repository here. Turnitin is smart enough to realize that if a student turns in a draft and the same student with the same Turnitin credentials turns in the next version of that draft, it's not going to make it, a 99% match. It can tell that. So you want to tick everything there, and down here at the bottom, there it is, Originality Report, sometimes called the Similarity Report. There's three options for resubmission, and because that's static, I can't show you, but basically they say you can generate the Originality Report, which gives you that percentage of how much is similar to other stuff in the world. You can generate reports immediately, so students can't resubmit. They can't put the thing back in. Once they get it, they've got their report, that's it. The other option in that drop down here is they can resubmit until the due date. So that means that if you allow them to see it in the next pane, to see their Similarity Report or Originality Report, they can submit it, and then they can see, ooh, Turnitin tells me that I've got 14%. So they can go in and change it, resubmit it. Oh, now I'm down to 8%. Resubmit it. Or the last option is it generates that Originality Report on the due date. So it waits until everybody submitted everything, due date, everybody gets that Similarity Report, and they have to live with whatever it says. When it asks you if you want to exclude bibliographical materials, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that, and I'll show you later why I insist my students include their bibliography in the actual assignment that they turn in at the bottom of the assignment. Exclude quoted materials, up to you. I wouldn't. Again, you can filter that later and do that later. Allow students to view Originality Report. Yes, I would, and I'll show you later why I think that's a good idea. And the only reason you wouldn't, I think, want to submit this assignment to the standard paper repository is if you're doing something that that is just a homework assignment, a homework assessment, or a draft. So if you're creating a draft assignment and you also have another assignment where it's the real assignment, the Turnitin has suggested maybe you don't want to put it in the paper repository. Certainly doesn't hurt to put everything into this paper repository, so don't hesitate. Peer mark, that's a cool Turnitin thing where you can have students look at each other's work. Canvas already does that. We do have a peer assessment option, so I don't use it. Attach a rubric, yes. If you wanted to, you can make up a rubric and turn it in. Canvas also already has rubrics that can be shared amongst us, so I don't know why you do that. And the last and probably best option is, do you want to save all this hard work you've done to figure out your settings and just make sure that that's the default each time for future assignments? Yes, I do, and submit. So that's the real quick version of the options in settings. You might find that if you're anything like me, you sometimes have to have students submit multiple files. So they have the actual assignment itself, it's all written out with the bibliography or a reference list down the bottom, and then they also have to provide supplementary materials, such as they have to provide audio exemplars, they have to provide scanned appendices, scanned scores, and things like that. Well, Turnitin will only accept one file upload, which is not a huge problem, but it takes a little bit of management. So you'll need to create 2 assignments if you want to do that. One assignment is where the students submit through Turnitin, and they include the reference list and bibliography in there so that you can see it later. The second assignment is to add another one for all their other online submissions, and I'll show you the example I've got open up already. So this one for my Year 12s, they are asked to scroll down to submit your assignment to Turnitin, and for them, there will be a submit button here. So I do have to go through this with them and show them how to do it. Then there's another one here, submit your sound sources all at once here. So they'll click on that. That'll take them to another assignment, so they can't get lost. And what it does is they submit everything in bulk. So they submit 4 or 5 files together, and then when I go to download them and put them into their online profile, it's got all their names on it. Okay? So that's how I would do it. I would just add it and it's a really easy thing to put a link in there and just choose the assignment off to the side here. And that's how I would handle the limitation that Turnitin can only accept that one file at a time. Now, the Similarity Report or the Originality Report is a wonderful thing. It looks a bit confusing, but it's important for you and the students to understand how it works. Different colors are different sources, and they will match up however much of a match it is. They come from the internet source. So somewhere on the web. They can come from student papers from different universities and different schools, anybody basically that uses Turnitin. Don't think or put across to your students that a percentage automatically equals good or bad. If anything, 0 is concerning. I mean, you would expect them to be repeating something. Even if you filter out the quotes and things, you'd expect there to be some kind of terminology or jargon that they would or common phrases that would go together. You can go crazy, even at this point, and filter out, and click the filter button, and filter out the bibliography. You can filter out the quotes, all of the quotes. You can filter out a certain number of words together and make it so that there's a minimum number of words that match up for it to pick it up. You can do all that. It's probably more important that you talk with students about what is okay to copy word for word, such as a quote. Notice that Turnitin will pick up everything, even missing words. So it can, if a student changed one word, it would pick up the entire rest of it and just show that that one word wasn't copied. It's better to look at this as a similarity report rather than a plagiarism report. So the percentage is something to be concerned about if it's a high percentage, but it's more important to talk to the student about what each of those means and use it as a learning experience. I would not be trying my darndest to get that down to 0 or close to 0 or to make it green. This is the reason why I want the bibliography in there, because I want to see the reference rainbow. The reference rainbow means that each of these comes from a different source. There are some students who will just copy a reference list or a bibliography from another assignment thinking that the teacher will never check it. And I suppose that's something that's possible. But this instantly shows you that they've actually got their references from a variety of sources. So that's why I asked them to turn it in with the Turnitin assignment. And again, you can, through this filter option, later on, after you've got it, decide to filter that out and then see what the match is without the bibliography. But I like having that option there, that tool for them. Now, as a teaching tool for the students to think about, as I said before, I include a link in here in the actual slide presentation you can look at in the notes. Is it plagiarism? In the link from the university of I don't remember where, said you and your instructor will have to interpret why the match occurred. So it's a conversation that needs to happen. It's a way to help students improve their writing, make sure the writing is more of their own style. And I've taken a quote here. Some instructors may want students to submit a first draft to Turnitin and then purposefully view their originality report, then edit their work, submit another draft, and even multiple drafts. It's up to the instructor. So it depends on how you want to do it. In the end, I would think that at university it becomes much more serious, and if they don't understand not only plagiarism, but how to rewrite and reword things so that they are in their own words and showing their own understanding, at university I'd like to think that they will be less understanding than we will be. So let's use this as an opportunity to teach them how to interpret this report. So for that reason I would share the report with them. If you like to do your marking online, or if you want to try and keep and not have to scan everything in, as we will have to do, especially for senior work, you can do the marking online and then download it with the annotations. And there's two options here really for us when you're using Turnitin. Speedgrader is the first one. It's built right into Canvas in the assignment. I'll show you the assignment. It's that right there. So you click on that, and then that will allow you to do all your marking and annotations electronically. Everything is, I'm assured, saved until the end of time. You can get these annotated works later after your class is already finished. This is an example of student work from one of my classes. It doesn't take a huge amount of time. You can use the pen and just tick as you would with a pencil. I have done this with a mouse. So I tend to use the highlighter, tell my students what my color coding means. Green is great, less so, we want to change this, oh my gosh, that's wrong. And I add comments as well. Sometimes just the colors are enough. Sometimes the comments are more important. I can do an area comment, so put a big box around this and then put a comment in. What they find most useful, I think, is my video comment. These videos are 5 minutes long, maximum 6 minutes long, which is enough time for me to have read it or to read a paragraph, record a bit, read and annotate a paragraph. Sometimes I'm recording and I'm annotating it at the same time. I find that it saves time, but more importantly, it provides more meaningful feedback to the students, and that's the feedback I've gotten from all the students. They really like that personal conference they're getting. And in Speedgrader, you can comment back and forth, where they can ask you a comment, you get an email, and it all stays in that one place. Speedgrader also gives you access to their Turnitin originality report, so you click on that, and that will take you out to the originality report so you can see all of that as well. And it allows you to give them their mark right there. It can be ABC, it can be points, it can be percentage points, letter grade. It can be ungraded, or it can be just, if it's a homework assignment or a draft, it can be complete, incomplete. Turnitin also has its own feedback. So when you look at that originality report, similarity report, which you click on that percentage and you get it, then that takes you into this. So we've seen this view, we've seen the filters and all that. The blue stuff at the top is actually quick marks here in the Feedback Studio. So I could go through and I can highlight things different, I think it's different colors, it may not be, actually, it may not be. So I can highlight and add text off to the side, or if it's commonly used stuff and I can add to this, I just drag it in there. Support, vague, missing something, improper chicken, I can't read that from citation. So just drag it in there, and some people find that's a lot faster. That's up to you, but those are those two options. Either way, when you want to download it and you have to file all this stuff, Paul and Gavin have come up with this amazing download annotated PDFs. When you click that, rather than going in here and downloading everything from here, this one, download annotated PDFs, will actually assign the names of every student to it. So it will download all student work with the name as the file name. So that's a lot easier when you go through and try and figure out which one is music assignment, which name it is. It actually has their name on it. I'm sure none of our girls would be involved in any of this chicanery, but it's important to think about the fact that there are ways to cheat the system. So it's possible if you look at something and you see, boy, that doesn't look like it's the word count, that students have found a way, like putting white text in, which is invisible to us, but it bumps up the word count. It might be possible that students would submit a version online that passes Turnitin, but then submit a different version on paper, thinking that we're never going to check the online one, and we'll just read the paper one. Students do pay other people to do the work. I don't know if our students would ever do that, but it definitely happens. There are paper mills, they call them, you can find online that will create something, and we'll even match it to whether they're an A or B or a C student. There is actually, in that link when I send you this, there is artificial intelligence that is writing student work or writing actual research projects and things, some of it for legitimate use and some of it for not. And there are online chat forums where students learn how to cheat. And I just found a little sampler of that, some of these places where you can go and learn the trick, Turnitin. So Turnitin is not the be-all and end-all, but when used properly, it can be a really good teaching tool for these kids. And if it teaches them nothing else, it's that they can't just copy somebody else's work, stick it in there, and be done with it. So if you have any more questions about all this that I have put forward to you, please don't hesitate to come and ask me. This is a half-an-hour PD stuffed into 17 minutes, so I might have skimmed over some stuff. If anything's unclear, come and see me.